Hello, everybody. Jade Hamilton here, and I've got Miss Phoebe with me today. Phoebe Elizabeth. She is one of the bears that I adopted over the summer just gone, and as you can see, she is very resplendent in her yellow. She's got a beautiful lace bonnet on. It's got yellow accents. She's got this beautiful gingham dress that I bought her from Etsy a little while ago. She loves this bonnet. She says it makes her look like a princess. Don't you, Phoebes? I actually won this in a giveaway um, by one of the lovely reborn collector ladies that I watch. The lovely Caroline Reborn Knight. Check her out if you haven't already, because she's just a genuinely lovely lady. And speaking of lovely ladies, we are, as you can see, because we're both in our yellow, participating in Sunshine Yellow's Reborn Sunshine Yellow Saturday, which is run by Tamara at Once Upon a Nursery. And because it is this channel and we do love a story, I've got some more poems to read to you today. It's another classic from my childhood. It's Alan Alberg's Please Mrs Butler, which is a book of poems about primary school life. And I know it's Saturday today, so school people aren't at school, but there's just something about these poems that just makes me feel happy and nostalgic, and they're just full of fun and full of pathos and heart-rending moments. They're just lovely, lovely. Alan Alberg, who wrote these, was actually a primary school teacher for some years. It's where he met his Mrs. Actually, the late Janet was also on a teaching course when they met, and so he knows of what he speaks. And as I say, they are just full of sweetness and light and humour, and they make you think, some of them as well. I think I'll start with the title poem today. I'll start with Please Mrs Butler, because it just makes me laugh. Please, Mrs Butler, this boy Derek Drew keeps copying my word, miss. What shall I do? Go and sit in the hall, dear. Go and sit in the sink. Take your books on the roof, my lamb. Do whatever you think. Please, Mrs Butler, this boy Derek Drew keeps taking my rubber, miss. What shall I do? Hide it in your hand, dear. Hide it up your vest. Swallow it if you like, my love. Do what you think best. Please, Mrs Butler, this boy Derek Drew keeps calling me rude names, miss. What shall I do? Lock yourself in the cupboard, dear. Run away to sea. Do whatever you can, my flower, but don't ask me. Poor old Mrs Butler, just at the end of her tether there. I have a wonderful version of this poem. I've got it on one of my Audible audiobooks actually. I think it's the nation's favourite poems, and it's read by Emma Fielding. wonderful Emma Fielding, and she gives Mrs Butler this kind of weariness of, when is it 4 o'clock? When can I go home? And I've never, I have done a bit of teaching. I did play schemes and things when I was in my 20s. I helped out. And I've been, miss, so I know how wearying it can be. And I've also been the kid. I've also been the person with a hand up, miss, not necessarily complaining, but I was the swotty kid, the one who knew all the answers. So I was told many times to sit on my hands because, yes, we know you know, let somebody else have a chance. Which was a bit tough because you'd think, well, if other people wanted to answer, they would have, wouldn't they? It didn't make sense. This next poem is about I think it's a little boy who struggles a bit with school, and it's called Slow Reader. I am in the slow readers group. My brother is in the football team. My sister is a server. My little brother was a wise man in the infant's Christmas play. I am in the slow readers group. That is all I am in. I hate it. Poor lad. I know it sounds like caricature, but um, you do get a sense that Alan Albert's kind of seen a lot of kids like that who just feel that school isn't working for them at all. While we're on the subject of the author, as per all my videos, when I read this is all copyright goes to Alan Alberg, to, hang on, let me see who the illustrator is. Fritz Wegner and Puffin. And so I own absolutely nothing, and this is just for your enjoyment and mine. And also, while we're here, if you haven't subscribed to Tamara at Once Upon a Nursery yet, do. She's a lovely lady, and she's full of fun. And this, the hashtags that she does, they really give people pleasure and bring people together, and she deserves a lot more subscribers, so go and check her out if you can. Now, this next poem is called Glennis, about a girl in class who talks too much. The teacher says, "Why is it, Glennis? Please answer me this. The only time you ever stop talking in class is when I ask you, where's the Khyber Pass? Or when was the Battle of Waterloo? Or what is 9 times 3? Or how do you spell Mississippi? Why is it, Glennis, the only time you are silent is when I ask you a question? And Glennis says, oh dear, poor old Glennis. She's got in a bit of a pickle there. I'm also going to read you the poem opposite Glennis, which is called Blame, which I love. Graham, look at Maureen's leg. She says you tried to tattoo it. I did, miss, yes, with my biro, but Jonathan told me to do it. Graham, look at Peter's sock. It's got a burn hole through it. It was just an experiment, miss, with the lens, but Jonathan told me to do it. Alice's bag is stuck to the floor. Look, Graham, did you glue it? Yes, but I never thought it would work. And Jonathan told me to do it. Jonathan? What's all this I hear about you and Graham Pruitt? Well, miss, it's really more his fault. He tells me to tell him to do it. Right. Some of these poems will require me to, well, some of these poems, some are meant to be sung, and I find some of them work better with tunes. Some of them were put to music by the wonderful Colin Searle, who does music for I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, amongst other things, on Radio 4. And I want to leave those to a slightly later date. But I've got another poem. Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves while I find the. I'll find this page. Whoops. Ah, here we go. This is another one that I used to love as a child. When I was at boarding school, for the first couple of years, there was a member of staff who used to come and read to me at night because I found it difficult to get to sleep. And this was one of the poems that she would read to me quite often from this collection. It's called The Ordeal of Robin Hood, and it's a long one because it's sort of a ballady type thing. So please bear with me. Also, as with the Roald Dahl stuff, um, it's slightly nearly 30 years old now, this book. So some of the um, so some things are reflective of the time a little bit. There is a new boy in our class. He came the other day. He hadn't any friends, of course, so we let him be in our play. This was the first That was the first mistake we made. The play was called Bold Robin Hood. We'd practised it all week. The new boy missed rehearsals, so he had no lines to speak. He thought of quite a few, though, as you will see. Besides, this boy was foreign. His English wasn't good. He said his name was Yannick. He'd not heard of Robin Hood. Robin Hood didn't get to Poland, Miss Hodge said. Well, first we pushed the desk back to make a bigger space. Then we hung a curtain up for the outlaw's hiding place. Miss Hodge just let us get on with it. Hey, Phoebe, that sounds cool. Making up plays. I used to love doing things like that at school. I used to make up plays and things on the playground. I was a very obnoxious child, diffuse, as you can tell, and a bit odd. Anyway, Miss Hodge just let us get on with it. Kevin Jukes was Robin Hood. Roy was Little John. I was the Sheriff of Nottingham. I had this red cloak on. The new boy was one of my guards, supposedly. The swords we had were rulers, the cupboard Robin's den, and most of us had moustaches drawn on with black felt pen. Roy's was navy blue, but you could hardly tell. The rest of the class sat round to watch. Miss Hodge was watching too. Then Keith announced the title and who was playing who. Keith was also fired up with a cushion up his coat. At first it all went pretty well. Mistakes we made were slight. The trouble only started when we got to the first fight. There should have been 3 fights altogether. Should have been. What we'd practised was an ambush to rescue Friar Tuck, with me and my guards just riding by until the outlaw struck. No horses, of course, just noises. So there was I, my cloak tossed back, duelling with Robin Hood, while Yannick, I didn't know it then, was guarding me more than he should. Perhaps there's something in the Polish language, but sorry, I shouldn't giggle so much. Perhaps there's nothing in the Polish language, but guards, you see, are meant to fight for a little while, then lose. Get captured, killed, or wounded, whichever way they choose. Usually our plays had guns in them, only this time Miss Hodge said she was sick of guns. But Yannick wasn't having that. He wouldn't even defend. And the way he was generally carrying on, the play would never end. That was the second mistake we made. It ended all right. And yet the worst was yet to come in Robin Hood's ordeal. Not only wouldn't Yannick die, he was sword fighting for real. The merry men were looking less merry by the minute. Scarlet's hand was stinging from the blows that Yannick smote, and Friar Tuck was thankful for that cushion up his coat. Annadale and Little John were already behind the curtain. We did our best to stop him, tried whispering in his ear, but he was shouting foreign words we couldn't make him hear. I could see how Poland knocked out the World Cup. The play was going haywire now. The audience could tell. When some of the guards tried changing sides, Yannick polished them off as well. Polished. Guess it? He's thought of that on the way home. Then, having done for the outlaws, he shoved me out the way and had a go at Robin Hood. That wasn't part of the play. In my opinion, Miss Hood should have stopped it then. Now Kevin had the plastic sword. The play was his idea. Now Kevin had this plastic sword. The play was his idea. And being who he was, of course, was supposed to show no fear. I was showing fear, and Yannick was on my side. But once the sword was broken off, then minus these merry men, Robin Hood dropped the other half and surrendered there and then. Then Miss Hodge stopped it, which I thought was a bit late. Anyway, that was the end of that. The audience gave a clap. Me and Roy took the curtain down and joined the rush for the tap. It's thirsty work acting, and we had to wash our moustaches off. Roy also fetched the first aid box, put a plaster on his shin, and offered to settle Kevin's nerves with a junior disprin. Oh dear, seems like they've all been in the wars a little bit. Kevin was worried what his mum was going to say about the sword. Yannick, meanwhile, was prowling round with his sword still in his hand, suspecting another ambush, perhaps, from another outlaw band. Miss Hodge said he reminded her of Errol Flynn, whoever he was. Errol Flynn, for those who aren't aware, was a very swashbuckling actor. He played a lot of roles like pirates. I think he did play Robin Hood a couple of times. He was very, very good at sword fights, a bit like Peter O'Toole later on. But anyway, Keith said, let's wait for the Christmas play and have Yannick in it again. He'd make mincemeat of the shepherds and slaughter the 3 wise men. But I'm that fed up with plays. Footy's a better bet. We've got this match against Class 4 and we've never beaten them yet. You can probably guess what was on my mind. Roy could. So tomorrow, Yannick brings his kit. The kick-off's 3:30. We'll play him in the forward line. He's the striker, obviously. Well, that's me finished for today. There will be more from this book as the days and weeks go on. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing, commenting. It really does make my day, and it gives me so much pleasure to know so many of you enjoy what we're doing. And Phoebe and I will see you soon. Can you wave, Phoebe? Good girl. Cheerio.